Hello. So I meditated today for the full hour, and every morning I've been doing my Path to Wealth practice where I write a letter to my higher self or my, God or whatever. It's basically a gratitude letter for what I want and what I have already. And then I've been spending a couple minutes doing this heart sort of based meditation. You're supposed to visualize the things in the letter, but I've just been asking for the highest good and whatever's for my highest good to come out of this, because everything that I think that I want is just sort of all over the place. Like, oh, I want this situation, and I want to live in this kind of house, and I want this kind of partner. And then I'm like, well, no, I don't know. Maybe I'd want something else. So I feel like this whole just the highest good of whatever is meant to come my way. But here's the deal, okay? Be careful what you wish for, because when you start really facing your fears, stuff is going to come up, right? So this is the thing. I just broke up with Chris 3 weeks ago, right? And in the past, I have stayed in relationships that I knew were not the right relationship because I didn't want to go through the discomfort of a breakup. So I avoided the inevitable until it was inevitable, right? We had to break up. So then it was more dramatic and painful and everything because I gave away my power, right? I just let the situation play out in, I wouldn't call it the path of least resistance because it was much more bumpy than leaving a good relationship. But that's the thing. So this time I left an amazing relationship because I knew it wasn't going to continue to stay amazing. So I rather would leave when things are great. And it's been so much better that way. But I was crying about this financial situation a couple months ago, and it has come to pass, and it was what we were not hoping to happen. It's very distressing, and I feel almost like I'm being punished, and it just sucks. It's a sucky situation, but I've had the attitude of I'm not going to let myself get down, because 10 years ago, this would have been I wouldn't have been probably able to work anymore. I would be in bed crying, suicidal, all of that, right? And I was like, I'm not going to let it go down that road. I have a choice in how I respond to this situation. But I was still feeling all of these feelings of disappointment and pain and lots of fear. And the fear is still there. But that was the thing. I started talking to my friend about the fear and how I had to face my fear. And then it clicked for me. This is the consequence of me not facing my fears. So I avoided dealing with this financial situation because it was scary and uncomfortable. And so I avoided it, and I kind of put in a half-assed effort. But when there was a barrier, when it was too hard, I just gave up. Until it got to the point where I was like, well, I better deal with this now, or there's going to be bigger consequences, right? So I got really serious, and I finally got through. Like, it was very difficult to get through to this situation. But I had the choice. I could make a half-ass attempt and then give up, or I could just make it happen, right? So yes, there were barriers. Yes, there are things about this that feel really unfair and it sucks. But at the same time, ultimately, I did this to myself. And see, I was hoping to learn, like I've been facing my fears lately, right? So out of this situation, I was hoping that the outcome would be, oh, lesson learned, and I'm okay, right? No major consequence other than a bit of stress. And now I have this major consequence where I owe a butt ton of money. And it sucks, and I'm scared. And I'm scared about other consequences, and what if this happens, and what if that happens, and whatever, right? But I talked to my best friend, and if I end up homeless, I have a place to crash. And that's probably not going to happen, but that's the fear, right? And ultimately, that's why I broke up with Chris, because I felt like I wouldn't at least have a home if everything in my life fell apart, because I don't have family to go to, right? So, try not to cry. But anyway, and that was the fear, right? And I saw that fear, and I thought, well, that fear is more important than the fear of being like without someone to cuddle up with at night, right? Knowing my partner doesn't have my back fully, that's a bigger consequence than me going through a few weeks of grief for the relationship. So I finally left him. But again, all those other dramatic relationships, I could have made different choices. And now I did the best that I could with the resources that I had at the time. But now that I'm learning, it just sucks that I had to learn the hard way with this situation. But that's the consequence. And I can feel, because the more that I feel like I am the victim in this situation, and that I was unfairly treated, which, there's still feelings of that, but ultimately, who is the most responsible party here? Me. Because if I had taken care of this 6 months ago, then it wouldn't even be a question. So that's my consequence. And unfortunately, I've had to learn it the hard way. But when we start growing and facing my fear is going to have a consequence. But if I had continued to not take action, there would still be consequence. And I'm just choosing to actually learn the lesson this time, instead of it being the reason that I'm, rewind 10 years of growth into the past. I guess I've gotten to the point now, finally, where I've learned it enough times that hopefully I've got this lesson of face your fears, whether those are relationship fears, existential fears, fears of failure, financial fears, scarcity fears, just a fear of embarrassment, all of those things. Yeah. So I'm trying. And that's my 100 days of meditation. And I don't know which of the 100 days it is, but it's still 100 days of meditation. So lots of love. Namaste.